Commander Zenna Blackwood stood at parade rest, maintaining what she hoped was a suitably professional expression while watching the most ridiculous first contact scenario in human history unfold before her eyes. The Kraxon delegation, all 7 feet of their chitinous, iridescent glory, was currently attempting to navigate the simple human concept of a doorway. Perhaps their lead diplomat, Asari, squeaked in that oddly high-pitched voice that seemed completely at odds with their imposing physique. If we angle ourselves at precisely 47.3 degrees, the third member of their party promptly crashed into the doorframe. Blackwood bit the inside of her cheek to keep from laughing. These were Earth's new military advisors? The beings who had graciously offered to elevate humanity's primitive warfare techniques to galactic standards? They couldn't even master basic entrance protocols. The Terran Defense Academy's main hall had never felt quite so small or quite so entertaining. "Welcome to Earth's premier military training facility," Blackwood managed, her voice steady despite the growing urge to grin. "We're honored to have such distinguished advisors evaluate our combat readiness." Shazari finally made it through the doorway, mandibles clicking in what Blackwood had learned was their species' expression of superiority. "Yes, well, we've reviewed your species' combat footage. Quite. Very enthusiastic, if unrefined. We're here to help, of course." "Of course," Blackwood echoed, leading them toward the training grounds where her cadets waited. Under her breath, she muttered, because nothing says superior military advice quite like a species that considers doors their natural enemy. The training grounds were a sprawling complex of obstacle courses, combat simulators, and practice ranges. 300 of Earth's finest cadets stood in formation, their backs straight and eyes forward. Blackwood felt a surge of pride until she heard the chittering laughter from the Kraxon delegation. "Oh my," Zari's second-in-command, Kr Tick, warbled. "They're so stationary. Do humans not understand the tactical advantage of constant movement? Look at them, just standing there, waiting to be targeted." Blackwood watched as Cadet Miguel Rodriguez's eye twitched slightly. The boy had once held position in a swamp for 3 days to win a training exercise, but sure, humans didn't understand tactical positioning. Perhaps she offered diplomatically, "You'd like to see them in action." Yes, Asari's antenna wiggled with what Blackwood was beginning to recognize as condescending enthusiasm. "Show us your most advanced combat scenarios. We'll begin noting areas for improvement immediately." Cadet Jade Wong caught Blackwood's subtle hand signal and stepped forward. "Sir, permission to demonstrate close quarters combat training scenario Delta." "Permission granted, Cadet Wong. Full contact demonstration." The Kraxon delegates chittered again, their translucent wings vibrating with amusement. "Close quarters? How charmingly primitive. In modern warfare, one never needs to." Shazari's commentary was cut short as Wong and her team exploded into action. The demonstration area transformed into a blur of coordinated violence, precise movements, and the kind of ruthless efficiency that had made humans the apex predators of their world long before they developed tools. "Fascinating," Kr Tick mumbled, antenna drooping slightly. "They move quite effectively for beings without exoskeletons." Blackwood allowed herself a small smile. "We make do with what we have. Now, perhaps you'd like to share some of your species' advanced techniques. I'm sure my cadets would love a demonstration." The way the Kraxon delegates suddenly found the ceiling fascinating was almost worth the diplomatic headache this whole advisory program was causing. "Yes, well," Shazari recovered quickly, mandibles clicking rapidly. "We'll need to assess their basic capabilities first. Can't rush into advanced techniques before we understand what we're working with. Very methodical process, very scientific, you understand?" "Oh, I understand perfectly," Blackwood replied, watching as Wong's team completed their demonstration with a series of moves that had even the most jaded of the human instructors nodding in approval. "We're all about learning here at the Academy. In fact, why don't you join us for tomorrow's endurance training? I'm sure beings of your obvious superiority will find our obstacle course quite quaint." The horrified clicking that followed would have been worth a court-martial. Blackwood made a mental note to have the maintenance crew adjust the course's gravity settings. After all, their distinguished guests deserved the full human training experience. God, she loved her job sometimes. The Academy's combat simulator hummed to life as Cadet Maya Chen watched the Kraxon military advisors adjust their simplified training scenario for the 5th time. Their mandibles hadn't stopped clicking since she'd introduced them to the concept of fighting in the rain. But why, Tick demanded, antennae twitching in distress, would anyone choose to fight in precipitation? Your armor's efficiency drops by at least 12.4%. Visibility is reduced, and the sound masking effects make proper battlefield communication almost impossible. Maya shared a look with Commander Blackwood, who was doing an admirable job of not rolling her eyes. Sometimes, Sir Maya explained with exaggerated patience, we don't get to choose our battlefield conditions. Then you withdraw and wait for optimal conditions, HFY interjected, his iridescent wings fluttering in agitation. It's basic tactical doctrine. Permission to demonstrate, Commander Maya asked, already knowing Blackwood's answer. Proceed, Cadet Chen. Full tactical response. The simulator's environment shifted, recreating Earth's monsoon conditions. Maya's team moved into position as the holographic enemy forces appeared, all positioned exactly where the Kraxon had insisted was tactically optimal. What followed was 3 minutes of what Maya's drill sergeant liked to call creative problem solving. Her team used the rain's sound masking effects to mask their approach, the reduced visibility to conceal their numbers, and the muddy conditions to turn the enemy's superior position into a disadvantage. When the simulation ended, Shizari's mandibles were clicking so fast they sounded like a malfunctioning printer. But that's not how it's done, he protested. You completely ignored standard attack vectors. You used the mud as a weapon. You threw it in their sensors. Mud is free, Maya replied with a shrug. And it works. Commander Blackwood's cough sounded suspiciously like a laugh. The next week didn't improve the Kraxon's opinion of human combat tactics. Maya watched with growing amusement as they attempted to comprehend human approaches to warfare, each revelation seemingly more distressing than the last. What do you mean you sometimes fight with projectile weapons? Tick had practically screeched during one session. In an age of energy weapons, that's practically Stone Age technology. Maya had demonstrated the effectiveness of a sniper rifle against energy shield calibrated for plasma weapons. The resulting holes in the target and in the Kraxon's assumptions had led to 2 hours of agitated chittering about physics-defying primitives. But it was the hand-to-hand combat training that really broke them. Absolutely not, Shizari declared, his entire exoskeleton practically vibrating with indignation. I forbid it. No species at your level of development should be engaging in physical combat. It's barbaric. Maya watched as Cadet Rodriguez demonstrated a perfectly executed judo throw on a training dummy. With respect, sir, what happens when our energy cells run dry? Or when we're in close quarters where energy weapons would breach hull integrity? You HFY's translator actually glitched trying to convey his horror. You planned for your weapons to fail. We planned for everything to fail, Commander Blackwood interjected smoothly. Then we trained to win anyway. The tension between the human instructors and their alien advisors reached new heights during the urban warfare exercises. Maya's innovative solution to clearing a building, which involved using the building's own ventilation system as both transport and weapon, had Tick threatening to report Earth to the Galactic Safety Commission. They're crawling through air ducts, he shrieked to his superior, deliberately, for tactical advantage. This violates at least 15 safety protocols. 16, actually, Maya corrected helpfully. We also reversed the airflow to clear out defenders' smoke grenades. That's against Regulation 47B of the Standard Combat Protocol. Commander Blackwood didn't even try to hide her grin this time. Cadet Chen holds the Academy record for creative interpretation of battlefield resources. That's not something to be proud of, HFY insisted, but Maya noticed his tactical analysis unit was recording everything despite his protests. The final straw came during the space combat simulations. Maya's suggestion to use garbage ejection protocols as impromptu missile launchers had the entire Kraxon delegation threatening to resign their advisory positions. This is not warfare, Tick declared, throwing all 4 arms up in exasperation. This is is effective, Maya suggested. Primitive, unpredictable, completely outside any established tactical doctrine. Commander Blackwood stepped forward, her patience finally wearing thin. With all due respect, advisors, that's rather the point. Our enemies study established tactical doctrine. They prepare for it. They expect it. What they don't expect is a species willing to throw their own garbage as a weapon. Or use rain as cover, Maya added helpfully. Or fight with primitive projectile weapons. Or crawl through air ducts. Or... Enough, Aisha's translator crackled with distress. We came here to elevate your species' combat capabilities, not to witness this. Innovative thinking, Blackwood suggested dryly. Madness. Your species treats warfare like some sort of improvisational performance. You ignore established protocols. You actively seek out suboptimal conditions for tactical advantage. You weaponize weather. Maya couldn't help herself. Wait until you see what we do with solar flares. The sound of multiple Kraxon consciousness briefly overloading their translators filled the training room. Commander Blackwood shot Maya a look that was equal parts reproach and pride. Perhaps, Blackwood suggested diplomatically, we should break for today. I'm sure our honored advisors need time to process these new tactical concepts. As the Kraxon delegation fled, there was really no other word for it. Maya caught fragments of their chittered conversation. Cannot be natural. Must be some sort of mass combat hysteria. Entire species of tactical anarchists. Cadet Chen Blackwood called, her voice stern but her eyes twinkling. While I appreciate your enthusiasm for demonstrating human combat innovations, perhaps we could refrain from giving our allies nervous breakdowns. Maya stood at attention, fighting to keep a straight face. Yes, Commander. Should I cancel tomorrow's demonstration of using solar radiation to create false sensor readings? Absolutely not. But maybe wait until after their mandatory safety briefing. We wouldn't want to seem uncivilized. The shared laughter that followed was, Maya decided, probably not going to help the Kraxon's opinion of human military discipline. But then again, neither was tomorrow's demonstration of using asteroid fields as impromptu ammunition dumps. Sometimes she really loved being human. The alert came during another tedious lecture on proper energy weapon calibration. Maya's combat neural interface pinged red milliseconds before the Academy's sirens began their wail. Commander Blackwood burst into the room, her usual composed demeanor replaced by controlled urgency. The Nexar have breached the Arcturus defense line, she announced without preamble. New Eden colony is under attack. The Kraxon advisors erupted into a chaos of clicking mandibles and fluttering wings. Impossible, Cesare declared. The Nexar, a known quantity. They never deviate from established assault patterns. Our analysis indicates. They've developed new tactics, Blackwood cut in, her voice sharp. The colony's outer defenses are already compromised. Maya watched as KR-TIC's tactical display projected the battle data. The Nexar ships moved in patterns she'd never seen before, chaotic, unpredictable, almost human. They're adapting, she muttered. Learning from their observations of us. Silence. Cadet Zari's translator crackled with authority. This is clearly a situation requiring experienced tactical oversight. Under Article 7 of the Galactic Defense Treaty, we are assuming command of this operation. Commander Blackwood's expression could have frozen plasma. With all due respect. This is not a discussion, Commander. Your species' unorthodox methods have clearly provoked this response. Standard tactical doctrine will resolve this situation. Maya exchanged glances with her fellow cadets as the Kraxon began issuing orders. Their standard tactical doctrine involved positioning Earth's defense fleet in textbook formations exactly where the Nexar would expect them to be. Cadets will maintain support positions, KR-TIC announced. Monitor communications and maintain equipment only. Real combat personnel will handle the engagement. Real combat personnel, Rodriguez muttered beside Maya. We've got more actual combat hours in simulation than their entire species has in real battles. The next 6 hours were an exercise in frustrated observation. Maya watched from her support position as the Kraxon commanders deployed Earth's forces with all the imagination of a computer running baseline protocols. The Nexar, clearly expecting exactly this response, began picking apart their defenses with disturbing efficiency. Enemy vessels are not responding to standard containment procedures, one of the Kraxon tacticians reported, his antenna drooping in confusion. They appear to be improvising. Impossible, Ashari insisted, even as another human destroyer exploded under Nexar fire. Maintain formation. They must return to predictable patterns eventually. Maya's hands clenched as she watched the tactical display. The Nexar were using the colony's orbital debris as cover, a tactic she'd demonstrated just last week, one the Kraxon had dismissed as primitively reckless. "Sir," she ventured, "if we could just maintain your station," Cadet Tick snapped. "This is not a training exercise." Another explosion lit up the tactical display. The Nexar had taken advantage of the fleet's rigid formation to slip fighters through gaps that any human commander would have considered blindingly obvious weak points. Perhaps Commander Blackwood suggested with deadly calm, "We should consider alternative approaches." "Your species' alternative approaches are precisely what encourage this deviant behavior," Ashari's translator barely kept up with his agitated clicking. The Nexar were a predictable enemy until they encountered humanity's chaos. "So you're saying we taught them to think outside the box?" Maya couldn't help herself. "Maybe we should show them what else we can teach them." Silence. All four of Tick's arms gestured in agitation. "Maintain standard containment formation. Increase power to forward shields. Deploy countermeasures according to protocol." The Nexar responded by launching what appeared to be their own garbage into the carefully maintained energy shield grid. The resulting electromagnetic interference created holes in the defense screen, almost exactly like the ones Maya had demonstrated in simulation. "They're using our own tactics against us," Rodriguez observed from his support station. "But they're doing it by the book, their book. They've adapted our concepts, but they're still thinking like Nexar." Maya watched as another human ship fell back, its shields compromised by debris that no civilized species would consider a weapon. The Kraxon commanders continued to respond with textbook maneuvers, each one anticipated and countered by the increasingly confident Nexar fleet. "Sir," she tried one more time, "we've trained for this. We know how to counter these tactics because we invented them. If you'd just let us." "Enough." Ashari's wings vibrated with fury. "Your species will learn proper military discipline from this encounter. Sometimes defeat is necessary for growth." Commander Blackwood's voice cut through the command center like a laser. "Defeat is never necessary. And those are my people dying out there while we follow your outdated protocols." "Your concern is noted," Commander Tick replied coldly. "But the treaty is clear. We retain tactical control until the situation is resolved." Maya watched helplessly as another defense satellite went dark. The Nexar were learning, adapting, evolving their strategy with every exchange. But they were still copying, still following patterns, just newer, human-inspired ones. And that, she realized with growing certainty, would be their undoing. Because if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was taking their own tactics and turning them upside down. She looked at Commander Blackwood and saw the same understanding in her eyes. The Kraxon might have command, but they'd never said anything about humans not being allowed to improvise in their support roles. Sometimes, the best way to follow orders was to redefine what those orders meant. Maya began typing rapidly into her console, sending coded messages to her fellow cadets. If the Nexar wanted to learn human tactics, it was time they got an education they'd never forget. The real question was, would the Kraxon advisors survive the lesson? Maya's boots squeaked against the polished floor of Maintenance Tunnel B7, officially closed for routine repairs. In reality, it had become the cadets' makeshift command center, because if there was one thing the Kraxon didn't understand about humans, it was their habit of turning any restricted space into a meeting room. "They're doing it again," Rodriguez reported, projecting the latest battle footage. "Standard formation Delta, textbook response to flanking maneuvers, predictable shield modulation patterns. And the Nexar are eating through our defenses like they've got an instructor's manual." Cadet Wong finished, her fingers dancing over a tactical display. "Look at these response times. They're not just learning our tricks, they're optimizing them." Maya studied the holographic replay. The Nexar had taken human-inspired chaos and turned it into a science. They're being methodical about being unpredictable, she mused. That's their weakness. Speaking of methodical, Rodriguez grimaced. The Kraxon just lost us another defense platform. Apparently, proper protocol doesn't include moving your assets when the enemy has clearly locked onto their position. The cadets had been meeting like this for days, analyzing battles, identifying patterns, and developing countermeasures they weren't officially allowed to implement. Commander Blackwood's routine maintenance inspections provided perfect cover for their planning sessions. Update from the Commander, Wong announced, checking her secured comm. The Kraxon are requesting additional advisors. Apparently, our primitive emotional responses are interfering with proper tactical execution. Maya snorted. Yes, because showing concern when our people die is clearly the problem here. They've lost 6 ships and 3 platforms, Rodriguez counted off, all following optimal engagement protocols. At this rate, the Nexar won't need to adapt further, they'll just keep running the same plays against an opponent that refuses to change strategy. The door hissed open, admitting Commander Blackwood herself. The cadets snapped to attention, but she waved them down with a tired gesture. At ease. The Kraxon are busy drafting their 7th revised tactical doctrine. Apparently, they're convinced that if they just find the right combination of standard responses, the universe will start making sense again. Maya recognized the commander's tone. It was the same one she used when watching cadets figure out a particularly obvious mistake in training. You're letting them fail. I'm letting them demonstrate the flaws in their own system, Blackwood corrected. Every failed operation, every lost ship, every compromised position, it's all documented, all following proper protocols, all perfectly by the book. And when the book gets us all killed, Wong asked quietly. Blackwood's smile had an edge sharper than a combat blade. That's why we're here. Show me what you've got. The cadets launched into their analysis. Maya led with the pattern recognition she'd developed the way the Nexar had systematized human tactical innovations. Rodriguez followed with defense algorithms he'd designed specifically to counter their methodical chaos. Wong presented a series of battlefield scenarios she'd run in private simulations, each one showing how proper Kraxon doctrine would fail against the evolved Nexar strategies. They're trying to out-human us, Maya concluded, but they're doing it like aliens. Both the Nexar and the Kraxon, they think they can quantify chaos, categorize improvisation. They're trying to turn warfare into a math problem. And that's their mistake, Blackwood nodded. Because humans don't solve combat equations, we break them. The commander pulled up her own tactical display, showing the positions of Earth's remaining defense assets. The Kraxon have filed 17 complaints about our equipment malfunctions and calibration errors. Apparently, our weapons keep defaulting to manual control instead of accepting automated tactical protocols. Maya's grin matched her commander's. How unfortunate. I'm sure our maintenance crews are working diligently to correct these technical issues. Very diligently, Blackwood agreed. Almost as diligently as they're working to ensure our backup command and control systems are fully operational, just in case of emergency, of course. Of course, Rodriguez echoed, already calculating firing solutions that definitely weren't in any Galactic Defense Treaty manual. The Kraxon, Blackwood continued, her voice taking on a formal briefing tone, have expressed concern that human combat units seem to be experiencing widespread communication system interference. They've recommended replacing our primitive equipment with their standardized arrays. Wong's fingers flew over her console. How strange that the interference only affects official channels, but not our old emergency frequencies. Indeed, Blackwood surveyed her cadets with obvious pride. I should note that any unauthorized combat operations during a communications blackout would be a serious breach of protocol. The fact that all human forces have been running daily emergency response drills using backup systems is purely coincidental. Maya felt her pulse quicken. This was why humans excelled at warfare, not because they were stronger or faster or more advanced, but because they understood that sometimes the best way to follow rules was to prepare to break them spectacularly. The Nexar have pushed back our outer defense line another 12 kilometers, Blackwood reported. The Kraxon response has been to demand an emergency session of the Galactic Defense Council to review proper containment procedures. How long? Rodriguez asked. The council convenes in 72 hours. Blackwood's expression hardened. The Kraxon estimate we can hold our current position for 96 hours under standard tactical doctrine. And in reality, Maya asked, already knowing the answer. At their current rate of adaptation, the Nexar will breach our inner defense line in less than 48 hours. The cadets absorbed this in grim silence. Their secret preparations suddenly felt less like a contingency and more like an inevitability. Well then, Maya said, pulling up the command protocols they'd been quietly modifying, I suppose we should make sure all our equipment malfunctions are properly documented. For the official record. Blackwood's answering smile was all teeth. Carry on, cadets. I need to attend another tactical review session. I'm sure watching the Kraxon try to classify human combat innovations into their precious doctrine will be absolutely fascinating. As their commander left, Maya looked at her fellow cadets, all of them trained, ready, and absolutely done with following alien rules of warfare. Let them keep their doctrine, she said quietly. We'll keep our chaos. The next 48 hours were going to be very interesting indeed. The Nexar attacked at dawn. Not that dawn meant anything in space, but Maya appreciated the dramatic timing as she watched the enemy fleet tear through the Kraxon's carefully arranged defensive grid like it was made of tissue paper. The main colony's proximity alerts screamed as hundreds of Nexar ships dropped out of hyperspace in what the Kraxon tactical manual would definitely not have classified as a proper attack formation. By the celestial concordat, Shazari's translator squealed. There. They're using our orbital debris as cover, Maya supplied helpfully from her support station, while simultaneously using it as kinetic ammunition. And they've positioned their ships in a spiral attack pattern that technically qualifies as 17 different violations of standard combat doctrine. Stop analyzing and do something, KR shrieked as another human defense platform exploded. But Sir, Maya replied with innocent professionalism, we're only authorized for support roles, as per your direct orders. The Kraxon command center erupted into chaos as multiple sensor arrays went dark simultaneously. The Nexar had apparently learned that the best way to confuse standardized defense systems was to be so wildly unpredictable that they crashed from logical overload. Maintain formation, Shazari ordered the remaining fleet. Respond according to Protocol 7 Alpha. A massive explosion cut him off as the Nexar demonstrated their newest trick, using the colony's own communication relays to bounce energy weapons at impossible angles. They can't do that. KR-TIC's antenna were practically tied in knots. It violates at least 36 regulations about proper weapon trajectories. Someone should probably tell them that, Rodriguez commented dryly from his station. Maya noticed him quietly transferring power to the backup command systems they'd prepared. The main communications array chose that moment to explode spectacularly, plunging the command center into emergency lighting. The Kraxon's tactical displays flickered and died as their standardized systems failed to cope with the loss of primary power. This is impossible. Shazari's wings vibrated so fast they hummed. All ships maintain standard emergency protocols. Regroup according to Section 12 of the VE. Static filled the command channel. Maya watched as the Nexar systematically jammed every frequency the Kraxon tried to use, except, of course, for the primitive backup channels no self-respecting advanced species would ever rely on. We've lost contact with the fleet. KR-TIC's translator was starting to smoke from his agitation. All systems are compromised. This cannot be happening. Actually, Commander Blackwood's voice cut through the chaos like a plasma torch. This is exactly what happens when you try to fight chaos with rigid doctrine. She turned to Maya. Cadet Chen, since our distinguished advisors appear to be experiencing technical difficulties, perhaps you'd care to demonstrate some proper human combat protocols. Maya's grin would have made a shark proud. Gladly, Commander. She keyed her emergency comm, broadcasting on the frequencies they'd prepared. All human forces, this is Cadet Chen. The Kraxon command system is temporarily offline. Implementing emergency protocol. Screw it. Rodriguez barked a laugh as he brought their backup systems online. Command acknowledged, switching to human tactical controls. This is a violation of Shazari began. Can't be a violation if all your systems are down, Maya interrupted cheerfully. Wong, you've got weapons control. Rodriguez, coordinate our fighter screens. Time to show the Nexar what happens when they try to out-chaos the Chaos Masters. The battle that followed would have given any traditional military historian an aneurysm. Maya directed Earth's forces with the kind of tactical creativity that only humans could truly appreciate. Ships performed maneuvers that the Kraxon's tactical computers refused to even acknowledge as possible. Weapons were used in ways that made physics itself seem more like a polite suggestion than a law. They're using their own disabled ships as Mind's K-Car-Tick's voice had gone up several octaves. That's human ingenuity, Blackwood corrected as another Nexar squadron fell for the trap. Wong, how's that little surprise we prepared for their flagship coming along? Ready on your order, Commander Wong replied, her fingers dancing over controls that definitely weren't in any official manual. Though I should warn you, it violates approximately 47 different safety protocols. Only 47? You're slipping. The Nexar flagship exploded in a way that suggested someone had gotten creative with the laws of thermodynamics. Maya watched with satisfaction as the enemy fleet's carefully calculated adaptation to human tactics fell apart in the face of actual human chaos. But HFY's translator finally gave up and died. His clicking mandibles needed no translation to convey his horror as Earth's forces demonstrated exactly why trying to systematize human warfare was like trying to organize a hurricane. It just made the chaos angry. Status report, Blackwood commanded, watching as the Nexar fleet began to retreat. Enemy forces are falling back, Maya reported. Apparently they've discovered that copying human tactics isn't quite the same as understanding them. Rodriguez, please stop using destroyed satellites as improvised projectiles. I think the Kraxon tactical advisor is about to faint. Can't hear you, Rodriguez replied cheerfully. Communications are still officially jammed. Also, who knew you could use atmospheric processing units as makeshift thrusters? The physics department is going to love this data. The battle ended not with a bang. There had been plenty of those already, but with the sight of the mighty Nexar armada running away from what they'd probably report as a violation of several universal constants. Maya turned to the shell-shocked Kraxon advisors. So she asked brightly, would you like us to document how many regulations we just broke? Or should we just file this under miscellaneous tactical innovations? KR-Tick's only response was a small, broken clicking sound. Sometimes, Maya reflected, the best way to win a war was to make everyone else question their understanding of reality. And humans, as it turned out, were really, really good at that. 3 days after what was already being called the Battle of Broken Protocols. Maya stood at attention in the Academy's main hall, trying not to smile as HFY attempted to deliver his final report to the Galactic Defense Council. In conclusion, the Kraxon advisor's translator struggled to convey his mix of resignation and bewilderment. Humanity's approach to warfare is technically proficient, despite being completely insane. The holographic council members shifted uncomfortably. One of them cleared whatever passed for their throat. Could you elaborate? They weaponized their own garbage, KR-Tick interjected, his antenna still drooping from trauma. They used disabled ships as traps. They transmitted combat orders through frequencies so primitive that our jamming systems didn't even recognize them as communication channels. His translator crackled. They violated 732 different combat protocols in 3 hours. 733, Maya corrected helpfully. You forgot the bit where we used the colony's sewage reclamation system as a makeshift missile launcher. Several council members made sounds that suggested they were reconsidering their life choices. Commander Blackwood stepped forward, her expression perfectly professional despite the twinkle in her eyes. What our honored advisors are trying to say is that humanity's combat doctrine is adaptable. There is no doctrine, Cesare burst out. They treat warfare like an improvised performance art. They don't just think outside the box, they deny the existence of the box, then use it as ammunition. And yet one council member noted dryly, they achieved victory against an objectively superior force. A force, Blackwood added, that made the mistake of trying to systematize human tactics. The Nexar learned our moves but not our mindset. They tried to turn chaos into order and got caught between the two. Maya finished. Turns out, trying to make human warfare logical is a great way to lose a battle. The council chambers fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't just another species to be guided toward galactic standard protocols. They were something else entirely, warriors who treated combat manuals as suggestion boxes and physics as a friendly challenge. We will adjust our advisory approach, the council leader finally declared. Perhaps it would be more beneficial for us to learn from humanity's unique perspectives. Zari's wings drooped. Does this mean we have to document their tactics? Oh no, Maya assured him with a grin that made his exoskeleton rattle. Documentation would imply we're going to do the same thing twice. Where's the fun in that? As the council session ended and the Kraxon advisors fled, probably to update several thousand years of tactical doctrine, Commander Blackwood turned to her cadets. Well done, all of you. Though perhaps we should wait a while before showing them our actual combat innovations. Maya thought about the training scenarios they had planned for next week and smiled. Sometimes the best victory wasn't just proving aliens wrong about human capabilities, it was making them realize they hadn't even scratched the surface of what humanity could do. After all, they hadn't even shown them the space shanties yet.